What's up, horror fam? Welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be episode 1 of a new series we are going to be doing on a weekly basis as we take a look at the new series Dexter Original Sin. Now this show just kicked off with its first episode on December 13th, and what we are going to be doing is we are going to be reviewing each episode and then giving a quick summary of what's transpired and our thoughts on that current episode and where the show is going. And if it's something that we would probably recommend checking out, especially if you are a fan of the original Dexter series, along with the Dexter series that they did soon after, which was called New Blood, which we saw and believed that the Dexter Morgan character was killed off, but then we find out with this series that he's not in fact dead. As this episode kicks off, we see that not only is Dexter alive, but this original Sin series is going to be pretty much set up as your whole life flashes before your eyes. Michael C. Hall is doing the talkover. He's doing the narrative for the entire series. And then once this series is over, it's going to lead us into June 2025, where we will see a new series called Dexter Resurrection, where Michael C. Hall will be returning into the Dexter Morgan character. Again, we will be doing a weekly review as each episode drops, so make sure you check each one of them out. Now, these will be filled with heavy spoilers. We will not be holding back. We are going to be going over each episode in detail. So if you haven't seen the episodes and you want to check them out, I would highly recommend seeing the episode before you come here and check out this series. Otherwise, you will be very spoiled. So let's get into some of these details. So where Dexter New Blood ended, Dexter is shot by his son Harrison, and we as the audience are led to believe that Dexter Morgan has died at the hands of his son, and that's where the character ends. Now, many people weren't happy with the way that ended, just like many people like myself were not happy with how the original series ended as well. So with this new series, Dexter Original Sin, it starts off where New Blood leaves off. So Dexter is in the back of a patrol vehicle. You can tell he's been shot. He's being raced to the hospital. We soon switch scenes and Dexter's on a hospital table. It looks to be like in an emergency room or a surgical room. They're working to revive him. And at the moment, quickly, he has no pulse, he has no heartbeat, and then they give him one. So he's got a pulse, he's got a heartbeat, and then we start hearing Michael C. Hall doing the narrative. And then this is now treated as much as a flashback series. So we quickly see a flashback of when Dexter is born, and then after that, it flashes back to where the series is going to start. We are introduced to a very similar intro when the credits are going, various things that you would do in the morning, whether that's making breakfast, getting dressed, your shower, making coffee. Again, very reminiscent of the original series intro. The only difference with this intro is now it includes Harry, Dexter, and Deborah, where the original series only included Dexter. So now all three of them are included because obviously they're going to be made the focal point of this series. Dexter's pre-med. He's going to University of Miami to become a surgeon. The first time we see him, he's in a cadaver room, so to speak, where they have a cadaver. He's going to be conducting a procedure for, it looks to be, to test to make sure he has the appropriate skills. His classmates are watching him along with his teacher. And after that, after he removes the heart from the body, his teacher gives him praise that he's done great work like he always does. So he obviously has a knack for this area in this field, which we would expect him to have some level of expertise in this as he was growing up versus what we saw him last in the original Dexter series of having honed all these types of skills. So we get to see a little bit of that. We then switch scenes to where we are now at a crime scene where not only do we have Harry showing up there, we have Angel Batista, he's there, Masuka's there. So some of the characters from the original series are already starting to make their way into this very first episode. The one character we did not see thus far is La Huerta. We have not seen her yet, but again, I'm sure we're going to see her probably in the next episode because she already has been teased in posters. She's been teased in the overall trailers for this show, so I think it's just a matter of time before we do see her. The Deborah Morgan character is exactly what you would expect her to be. She's very much with what we saw in the original series. She's very an unfiltered character, which I'm okay with. There's nothing wrong with that. We would expect her to have some of that about her as she grew up. So the Deborah Morgan character is very much like what we saw in the original series. She's very an unfiltered character, whether that's harsh language, whether that's very direct with her responses or how she interacts with people. Again, very much like we saw her. I'm a little bit surprised that we're portraying her this way so early on as she's younger. You would have thought this might have been something that she would have evolved into as she became a cop, but that's not the case, because we do know she was a vice cop in the original series and then moved on to be detective. So you would have thought that would have come across as she got older and not when she was so young in high school, but that's the way that they're going to be playing her character. So again, I'm not unhappy about that, but I'm a little bit surprised that that's the path they went. So as the episode goes on, Dexter is very much an introvert, like we would expect him to be. He wants to have nothing to do with people, very much like he is in the original series. Now, there's a scene where Harry has told Deborah the only way she can go out is if she takes Dexter with her to a party. She obviously doesn't want to do that. She wants to have kind of like her own life, doesn't want to be tied down or seen with her brother, because her brother is known to be this very odd type person. And again, we would expect that early on for Dexter because that's what he portrayed as an adult. So, and we saw a little bit about that in the flashbacks throughout the seasons in the original series, that Dexter was very much like that. He was very much a loner, so to speak. So there was a pivotal point though when they are at this party. Deborah becomes drunk. She is upstairs with another individual. Her friend comes and looks for Dexter, tells him that she is upstairs in a locked room, not sure what's going on. Dexter rushes up there to find her unconscious and then drags out the guy that's in there trying to take advantage of Deborah and ends up beating him up. There is a point as Dexter is beating up this individual that you see the switch flip, and he looks over and sees a pair of scissors and he's getting ready to reach for them, but then all of a sudden Deborah pops up, pulls Dexter off of him, and questioning what he's doing. Now that didn't make very much sense to me. She's upstairs, she's unconscious, and then within a matter of minutes she is conscious, she's downstairs, being able to compose herself to understand what the situation is and get Dexter off of him. And then they eventually go home to find Harry waiting for them, wondering where they've been. Now, this is where a pivotal scene happens, I think, in the story of Harry. Now, Harry is sitting there in the dark, and as the two go to bed, he looks out through the window at their swimming pool, and then we see a flashback moment for him. This is the first time we find out where Harry actually had a previous son named Junior, or they're referring to the child as Junior. And in this flashback, Harry is watching football, he's drinking beer, and as he goes to speak to his son doesn't respond to him, and Harry realizes the back door is open, and as he goes outside, he sees that his son is in the pool and has drowned. And as he tries to revive him, he realizes he is too late. And then this is where we then see the first notions of Doris, the mother. And she's only in the episode for this very small scene. It was probably less than 10-15 seconds the most that we see the two of them together. After that, we don't see Doris again. We don't see a mention of Doris as it relates to this situation. Deborah does mention that about her mom, or she's lost her mom, and so is Dexter. But outside of that, we don't see the character. The character isn't ever mentioned again in this very first episode. So that might be on purpose, why they don't necessarily want to focus on the mother. They really didn't focus on the mother in the original series. So they really just focused on Harry, Deborah, and Dexter, which is really what they're doing here. Now, one thing I do want to call out throughout this entire episode is it felt like a very, almost at times, like a music video. They were definitely trying to make you understand this was happening in the early 90s, where they just kept playing 90s music, and it almost seemed like at unnecessary times. So I would have liked to have seen and heard less of that and more of an eeriness, more of a composed type music of what we would have saw from the original series. Again, I understand why they're trying to distinguish themselves from the original series as a more of a prequel, but again, I don't feel like I need to hear 90s music every 2 to 3 minutes where you feel like it's a music video. So that was one thing you will find throughout this entire first episode. We do find at one point Dexter does have a book where he's hiding it in a adult magazine, where he's hiding clippings of the Night Stalker, Ted Bundy, BTK, and Zodiac, where he's admiring these serial killers. Something that we didn't necessarily see, obviously, as an adult, but we start to see that portrayal of he's comparing himself to these other individuals, these other serial killers, where he feels like he is the same as them, that he has things in common with them. So this dark passenger, he's already, again, comparing himself to wanting to be like them in various ways. Again, we move on now with the episode. We find where Dexter has his first interaction with Masuka at a career type day at the university where they have multiple booths set up. He comes across Masuka, and the Masuka character is very much like the one we saw originally. He's very much this womanizer, taking pictures. We haven't seen the full creep mode of Masuka yet, but I feel like it's going to get there. So Dexter sees these forensic photos that they're portraying in the booth. He calls out something very specific. Masuka takes note of it, but just, dismisses it altogether. This does come up later on in the episode, this interaction, because later on in the episode, Dexter is eventually offered a paid internship to join Miami Metro PD in the forensics department, and that's where he kind of gets his start in that journey. But prior to getting there, Harry and Dexter are out hunting, and we've heard about these hunting trips. We knew about that from the original series. This was a way Harry was trying to keep the dark passenger, these urges that Dexter has, at bay. And Dexter expresses during this hunting trip, this is not working for me anymore. I need to kill. This is something I need to do. And again, Harry is trying to hold him off, trying to tell him, you don't need to do this right now. You're not ready. And at that moment, and was even leading up to that moment, we saw Harry struggling a little bit, as if he was out of breath, that he was having some problems. And then next thing you know, he ends up having a stroke. We then switch scenes where Dexter has rushed him to the hospital. And this is where the story now starts to take a bit of a turn. This is where the episode starts to get a bit darker now. So while Harry's in the hospital, he's being seen by a nurse called, her name is Nurse Mary. And she's actually injecting Harry with this cocktail, so to speak, that is actually making Harry worse. And come to find out, as Dexter finds out, Dexter is walking by a room where another individual has passed on, and this nurse is trying to console a family member. And as she's doing that, she has a smirk on her face. Dexter notices this. Dexter follows her to the nurse's station or office, where she actually has something locked away in a filing cabinet that Dexter eventually breaks into and finds it's her trophy books, where she's keeping obituaries of all the individuals that she has killed with this cocktail. So Dexter takes one of the syringes that didn't necessarily go. So they're in the hospitals. If you do know, there's these little boxes that these syringes go into for disposal because of the nature of what they're being used for, but the flap didn't close all the way. So Dexter was actually able to retrieve the syringe that the nurse used. He takes it back to school, does a test on it, and with the confirmation from his teacher or a doctor, finds out that in high doses, this cocktail can kill you. So Dexter rushes back to the hospital. Harry's just getting worse day by day. Lets Harry know this is what's going on. So Harry gives him the go-ahead to, one, keep her from giving him any more injections, but two, to go ahead and take her out. So Dexter now sets up his kill room in her house, and then later on that night waits for her there. Now this is where we're going to have to probably see a change throughout this season on how Dexter goes about these kill rooms. He sets it up the same way, but he doesn't have the horse tranquilizer that he would use to subdue his victim. In this case, he just tried attacking her, and she fought back, and there was a struggle there, and he eventually subdued her. But again, it's not something we're used to seeing. Being his first kill, we would understand why he doesn't necessarily have the tranquilizer to subdue them. But after that, it's pretty much routine. She is saran wrapped to the table, where she confesses and where she feels she's doing something good, where she feels she's taking these people's pain away. Dexter doesn't see it that way, and he ends up disposing of her and taking her out. Unlike, again, what we've seen in the past, where Dexter would dispose of the body by cutting it up into various pieces, wrapping them separately, and then taking them out to the ocean, so the current, or out to the waters on his boat, and then the current would take it out to the ocean. In this case, he takes the body to what they're calling Gator Alley, where he takes the full body wrapped up, pushes it out into this secluded swamp area, and then the gators pull the body down and dispose of it. So again, not something that we're used to seeing, but if this is the start of how he was doing things, it makes sense why he wouldn't have a boat to go about doing that, like he wouldn't have the tranquilizer to subdue his victims. He does, though, keep a trophy, and the trophy he keeps isn't the blood slide. He actually keeps the earrings of the nurse, and once he sees the earrings and decides to do that, we then get a talk over from Michael C. Hall saying he's taken a trophy, but this will later come back to haunt him. This will later be found out to be a mistake. So we don't know what that mistake is, as far as, does someone find the body or a piece of the body? Does someone, say the nurse is missing and then someone finds these earrings. So we don't know what that's going to play into yet. I'm sure we'll see later down the road if he does somehow get caught or has to figure out what to do with these earrings. But they made it a point to have in that talk over that will become a mistake later on. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Beyond that, Dexter shows back up at home. So many of the other police officers are there to provide them food, him and Deborah food, while Harry is in the hospital, like most officers would do when another officer is, whether they're in the hospital or unavailable to take care of their family. This is a typical thing we would see. Now we do see again very briefly Batista in the scene, but again, not there to be much of a difference. I think total screen time he had was probably 30 seconds and maybe just very few lines, if that. Nothing impactful, but again, I'd imagine he's there for a reason for later on in the season. So after that, again, Dexter is offered a paid internship to be in the forensics department, and as the episode wraps up, we see a couple things. We see Dexter graduating from University of Miami. Harry it gets better. He's released from the hospital. So eventually, Harry and Dexter have a conversation once they're home from the hospital between the two of them, and Harry asks Dexter, how did it feel? How do you feel? And Dexter expresses that the killing felt right. And after the conversation ends and Dexter leaves the room, Harry has a moment where he breaks down and realizes, obviously, this isn't the life that he wanted for Dexter, but there's no stopping this now. He gave him the go-ahead to do it, and now that he's had that first kill, it's just going to be a matter of time now that Harry realizes this is just going to continue. And now he's going to have to figure out how does he control Dexter in this now new life that's being created. We find ourselves now going into a scene where Harry and Dexter are in an elevator where Harry's expressing to him this is not the life he wanted for him. And you're not sure what that means yet until the elevator doors open and we are at the very well-known scene and area of the forensics department where all the detectives sit. The set is the exact same setup as we saw in the original series. And after that, they kind of go their separate ways. Dexter goes with Masuka, and we see Dexter at his infamous desk that he had throughout the entire run of the original series, and the episode ends. My thoughts overall, it's a good start to telling the story. I do hope they pick it up because at times it did feel very slow. At times it did feel very unnecessary scenes. Again, all the music playing was unnecessary. Some of the interactions felt very forced and unnecessary. And you don't really know, is each episode going to be like it was in the original series where Dexter is coming across a new victim to kill, but there's a broader story happening. You really don't know what that's going to be. So they don't really tell you or make you believe, hey, this is what we're playing to for this entire 10 episode run. So I think they have a lot of ground to make up if they're going to keep the long-term Dexter fans interested, because thus far, as a fan of the original series, not so much the finale, and I was okay with Dexter New Blood, but with this prequel series, I was hoping for a bit more to kick it off, to keep me interested and to keep me wanting to come back and see more. We will, of course, go back and watch every episode, give our thoughts on it, but I'm not overly impressed. If you wanted to do more Dexter, I think you could have just done what you did as this episode started off. Keep Dexter alive, have him rush to the hospital, and if you wanted to do Michael C. Hall as Dexter, then do Dexter Resurrection right from there. You don't necessarily have to do a prequel and then go right into the Michael C. Hall story. So we'll see how this one plays out. Again, we're going to be doing an episode watch and review every week, every Friday once these become available, and we'll release them over the weekend. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Let us know what you think. Have you checked out episode 1 of Dexter Original Sin, or do you plan on checking it out? Again, this is just our opinions. Don't base it solely on that. If you are a fan of the Dexter series, I would highly recommend checking it out because it might be something that you do like, especially if you are interested in a prequel story for not just the Dexter character, but Deborah and Harry as well, along with the other detectives like Batista, like Masuka and LaGuardia. So if you're interested in all these other characters and seeing how they came up in the ranks to where we see them in the very first season of Dexter Original Series, again, I would recommend checking it out. All right, that's going to do it for us here today at Reign of Horror. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It does help us out a lot. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about the series if you've checked it out already or if you're going to check it out. Otherwise, we will see you at the next one. Peace.